I have seen a lot of things in my time as a member of parliament in terms of the erosion of parliamentary rights. And when somebody says the erosion of parliamentary rights, they mean your rights in a democracy, right? I represent over 120,000 people in the House of Commons, and my right as a parliamentarian, my privilege as a parliamentarian, is their right to democracy. It's interchangeable. It's the same thing. And I want to take a moment to explain to you the significance of something that happened yesterday in terms of the not just erosion of democracy in Canada, but actually a question of if Canada is a democracy, if this happens. This is unprecedented. And regardless of how you vote, you should be concerned about this because we can disagree on policy. We shouldn't be, this is inherent to our democratic rights. And it's this story, it's in the Globe and Mail. I don't know if you can see it here. And I'm just going to read the headline to you. It's Liberals take the House Speaker to court in order to seal documents. Liberals take House Speaker to court to block release of unredacted records about fired scientists. Okay, this sounds really technical and complicated, but I want to break it down for you and why it's an assault on your rights. So, if you think back to your civics class from high school, you know that there's essentially three branches of the government. There's the executive, so the government, the cabinet, the prime minister. There's the judiciary, the court system, and then there's the legislative branch. And parliament is the legislative branch. We make the laws, right? The judiciary interprets the laws, and the executive branch has other responsibilities. But the judiciary can't overturn parliament. Like, can you, so essentially, to put this really simply, if the government, if the prime minister didn't have to consult the legislative branch, or the judiciary didn't have to consult the legislative branch, and I'm oversimplifying, then we don't have a democracy anymore, right? Because where does your voice as a person factor into it? We have appointed judges and the government. The reason why we have parliament, the House of Commons, is to vote on legislation, to vote on public spending, right? So when you cast a vote for a member of parliament, you know, you really have to think about this. It's not just about, you know, casting a vote for whoever you like the best. It's who is going to make the smartest decisions for you on public spending, on issues, any other issues, justice issues, foreign policy, whatever, right? It's something that's really taken seriously. And that's when, you know, like there are some times where I don't agree with my party and I have to try and move the needle, or they might not agree with me, but you need somebody who is fighting for you in order to make sure that those decisions are accountable. But if the judiciary can just overrule parliament, or the government can just use the judiciary to overrule parliament, it's no longer a democracy, right? It's actually broken. Like, then the system is flat out broken. I would argue we're not a democratic country. So what happened here in that context? So if you've been following this, there's a level 4 laboratory in Winnipeg. It's called the National Microbiology Lab. It's up to level 4, and it holds some of the world's most virulent viruses, like the Ebola virus. And at some time in the last couple of years, some scientists that were affiliated with the lab somehow got security clearance in there, managed to take from a Canadian facility samples of the Ebola virus to China. That is a huge problem. So clearly something went wrong there. So Parliament wanted documents and records related to this in order to look at things on your behalf, like this. What security measures were in place, and how did that happen? How can we fix that to make sure that never happens again? Was there anybody else implicated in this that needs to be fired? Do we have adequate security protocols? Like, how did this happen? We need to fix it. We needed those documents. So Parliament voted to have these documents released. The government, the Liberals, Trudeau, ignored that House order. We had to do another House order. It was a repeated thing. And finally, my colleagues moved something called a point of privilege. A point of privilege is saying my right as a parliamentarian through the House on behalf of everybody that we represent has been breached because the government is not complying with these orders of the House. It's like almost like breaking the law, right? In any other circumstance, you'd be arrested. It's illegal. the government has to comply with these things. They can't just ignore it. But they were just ignoring it. They were just ignoring it. They're like, no, Parliament doesn't matter. That's not a democracy. If the government's not listening to an order of the legislative branch, we've got a big problem. So the Speaker actually ruled, the Speaker of the House of Commons is like the arbiter in the court, if you will, of Parliament. He ruled that privilege was breached. And the House agreed to 2 items of censure to make the government comply. So first of all, we hauled the head of the Public Health Agency of Canada to the bar of Parliament for admonishment. That's a very serious thing. It's never happened in, I think it was 113 years of Canadian history. The second thing was the Speaker ruled that these documents had to be provided to Parliament. And instead of complying with that order, what the government has done, what Justin Trudeau Liberals have done, is they have, the Solicitor General of Canada, paid for on your tax dollars, has taken the Speaker of the House of Commons to court. So what the government is doing here is saying that they're trying to use the judicial system to sue the Speaker of the House of Commons. Does that sound like a democracy to you? Think about that. What other countries would something like that happen in? Would that happen in a democracy? No, of course it wouldn't happen in a democracy. There's a separation between those branches, right? And they each have their roles and responsibilities and checks and balances. So think about this. Justin Trudeau the Liberals have been found in contempt of Parliament. They're still violating the order of the House, but instead of complying with it, or instead of trying to find a way to comply with this, to comply with the democratic will of the elected representatives of the people of Canada, right? Because it passed. Instead of doing that, they've elected to sue or to take the Speaker of the House of Commons to court. Think about what that means. Think about what that means. And as a legislator, this puts a chill in my heart, right? Because I'm a very vocal and outspoken critic of the government. And if the government starts suing or taking legislators to court over matters decided in Parliament, that's pretty serious. It actually makes me fear. And in a democracy, a member of the opposition shouldn't have to fear, right? Fear reprisal of the government through the court system in any way, shape, or form. And I want this to sink in. I want this to sink in because I think a lot of people in Canada are sort of under this blissful illusion that the erosion of democracy can't happen here. I mean, it's Canada, right? Like, it's Canada, it can't happen here. But that's the problem, is that it's the slow, incremental changes and erosion of democratic power. Democracy doesn't, disappear in an Independence Day style, I'm dating myself, movie with like this massive explosion. It happens when the public is complacent with incremental erosions of the rights of parliamentarians. And this is not what's happening here in this story is not an incremental erosion. It's huge. The government, the Liberals, the Solicitor General of Canada is taking the Speaker of the House of Commons to court to hide documents. That does not happen in a democracy. Okay? So if you think that somehow we're this wonderful democratic nation where Parliament is supreme, that's not under this government, not under this government, not under this government, this supposed Liberal government. And you know what I think it is that people are really willing to give Justin Trudeau the benefit of the doubt because he talks a good game, right? But that's the scariest scenario, is when somebody who is just blatantly lying to the public is believed and then doing this stuff behind the scenes, hoping that people won't notice. You're losing your rights. Again, if you're watching and you hate me as a conservative, I don't care. You should be concerned that what is happening here is an erosion of your rights. Okay? And the people who should be most concerned about this are Liberal backbenchers. Why aren't they fighting this? Why are the Liberals allowing Justin Trudeau to be the leader of their party if he's willing to do this? They're all complicit in this. I can tell you, I would not be complicit in this. There's just no way. There's some things that we should not disagree on. And the functioning of our parliament and our democracy, we can have vigorous policy fights. You can fight with me on policy. You can hate my policy. You can speak against my policy, but you can't take away my right, your right, to be represented in a house of an elected parliament. That's the fundamental thing that's happening here. And by taking the Liberals taking the Speaker of the House of Commons to court, that is a boss move to try and not erode our democracy, but essentially end it. Because if the government can override the will of Parliament, it's over, people. It is over. And if you're naive and you think this isn't happening here, it is happening here right now, right under your nose, and you need to care about this. This is too much. This is it. And again, I'm not exaggerating and saying this makes me scared. It does. If he is going to do this to the Speaker of the House of Commons, if he's going to pass bills like C10 that, you know, allows the government to essentially censor what you're seeing on social media, who's public enemy number one? It's me, because I criticize the government, and I don't do that out of, you know, my good health. I do it because that's why the people of my riding gave me a mandate. I was elected with 70%, nearly 70% of the vote last time. It's a pretty big mandate, and it's a pretty big responsibility to hold the government to account. My voice is the voice of my people, and by him taking the Speaker of the House of Commons to court to defy the will of Parliament, that is your problem. It's my problem, and it's every Canadian's problem. Again, we should all, across political stripe, Liberal, NDP, Green, Bloc Québécois, Conservative, whatever, we should agree this is wrong. So I need you to share this video. We're looking at every option possible to stop this, but here's the reality of the situation. The House has risen for the summer. There's likely an election that's going to be called. This is backdoor stuff that's happening that most Canadians just aren't paying attention to because it's the summer and we're finally coming out of lockdown. But you need to pay attention, because what kind of country are we going to have to come back to after lockdown if this is how the governing party of Canada is going to manage? This is losing the moral authority to govern here. This is highly problematic. And I mean, I am speaking out on it here. I'm doing everything I can. Sometimes people say to me like, well, do something about it. Well, I'm speaking out on it. We moved these motions. We've been fighting. We've been moving these privileges. The only way that we can fight these guys is if you raise your voice and you say it's a problem. And when a Liberal candidate comes to your door, you say, why didn't you speak out on this? Where are you? We need to make noise on this, Canada. Again, you can disagree with me. I don't care if you don't like me, but you can't like this. You can't like this. So share this video and care and understand, again, the core of this issue here. The Liberal government is taking the Speaker of the House of Commons of Parliament to court to defy the will of Parliament, your will, through your existing representatives, to cover up documents. That does not happen in a democracy. So what are we going to be? Are we a democratic country or are we not? Raise your voice and know that this is serious. Working hard for you in Calgary. Have a great day.